It's 2 minutes past. I think we're safe to move forward. Hello everyone. Welcome. Happy to have you here. My name is Adrian Botusan, and I'm speaking in commercial capacity for Binbox Romania. And I'm going to be opening this presentation with a couple of words of who Binbox is and what Binbox wants to achieve in the market. And of course, what we're going to be seeing today. Binbox Romania, it's one of the biggest Romanian system integrators and hosters. They have a long tradition in local hosting for customers that are concerned about their data sovereignty, for customers that are concerned about their business continuity and the state of their data. They have 2 data centers in Romania that can balance each other for BCDR purposes. And the focus now is on how we can help the customers that have privacy concerns, sovereignty concerns, that actually want to run advanced cloud workloads on premise, on European Union space, and with full control over the costs and who has access to their data. For this, we're gonna be having 2 MVPs, which will be speaking immediately after me. It's Dino and Kenny. With that, apologies. Before that, I just want to thank to the sponsor of this webinar, to Aleph Distribution. They were kind enough to sponsor this and extend the invitation to the channel partners to help them explore hybrid cloud solution. Aleph Distribution, it's a top Romanian distributor with focus on infra, AI, and security. If you have any questions during the call to our specialists, please raise your hand or write something in the chat, and be more than happy to pass the questions to our specialist. We'd like to have an interactive session, so we'd love to have your question as soon as they pop up, not at the end of the session. Thank you very much. And Dino, I'm going to hand over to you to talk to our audience, to tell them what news we have from Ignite for Azure Local, and also what Center of Excellence from Azure, from Binbox, for Azure Local, what it means for anybody's business, somebody that wants to, I don't know, maybe migrate from VMware, maybe they want a sovereign platform to deploy their new applications. So Dino, up to you. Thank you.
Thank you. So sharing my screen. Can you guys please just confirm you can see my screen and can see me? Hello, everyone.
Yeah.
Perfect. So my name is Dino Bordonaro. I'm located in Germany, and I'm a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional for Microsoft Azure, especially Azure Hybrid and Cloud and Data Center Management, which is the Windows Server and System Center suite. So basically, it's an MVP for on-premises and hybrid cloud. And today we are going to talk about the Binbox Center of Excellence that we've built with 2 of our partners, which is basically Microsoft and Dell in this case. And I'm working here as a Chief Cloud Architect role for Binbox together with the team to bring this innovation to you people out, because there's a lot of exciting news about Azure Local these days and the services on top of Azure Local. And for this, I want to talk with you guys about the agenda first, so that you have an idea what we're going through and if this makes sense for you. So please, at any point where there's a question, raise your hand. The team will take care about you, so we can make sure that we can ask, we can follow your question and also answer it in a way you have a good answer, or we come back to you later after the session maybe. If you have more questions, or if you want to know more about Azure Local as a platform and the product, also come to the team, please. We're more than happy to have a one-to-one call and talk about your use cases and talk to you, especially about if it makes sense. So long story short, we are here for you guys, and we started off with Azure Local. What is Azure Local? Before we start about the interesting news, but I'm just having 3 slides here to talk about the concept. And if some of you guys are looking into a new hypervisor solution, basically caused by Broadcom and the VMware situation, this may be a very good fit for you. So please come to us if you are from another platform, considering to change the hypervisor, and as well, if you are having local on-prem VDI solutions with accelerated graphics, stuff like this, and you want to go away from Citrix to another solution. This is Azure Local with Azure Virtual Desktop is also a massively good, especially competitive price product here to go to. So come to our team. That's my marketing slot for now. I'm Dino, as I said. I am most valuable professional since 7 years. I'm in data centers around since almost 20 years now. Started with web hosting very early in my life. So I'm deep down technically. If it's too technical, please also raise your hand if you don't understand it and tell me to talk higher level. I try to keep it as high level as possible from my side. So please don't run away from seeing this image. All we want to know, all we want to say is that Azure Local basically is a cloud product brought to you guys on enterprise grade hardware. This means we are extending the Microsoft Azure cloud from the ecosystem to your data center, or our data center at Binbox run for you exclusively in a co-location or in a managed service. So you can always come to us and say, we want to consume this as a cloud, like we pay for Microsoft Azure. And the team is open to work with you through how this could look like to rent the solution, basically with a competitive pricing, which is also on a monthly charge and not on a big one-time investment here. Both versions are possible. Long story short, we're extending Microsoft Azure in the data center, and these nodes that we talk about in this platform is basically a hybrid cloud on premises. No matter if it's your data center or our data center or a third-party data center of another company, we always can bring the hardware and connect it to Microsoft Azure. But the cool thing here really is that it's the real Azure service that is able to run on your site on premises. It's a subset. It's not the full-blown Azure. It's a subset of services which are so-called Arc enabled. Arc enabled means it's basically a long cord between Microsoft or a patch cable or whatever you want to imagine, something that connects your hardware where the software is installing on top with Microsoft Azure technology to the Microsoft Azure cloud, so that you guys, you see it here in the middle, enabled by Azure Arc, see all these services on premises, like virtual machines, like containers, like managed Microsoft SQL, things like this. You see it inside Microsoft Azure. The beauty is that you can manage it inside Microsoft Azure. It's for you the same kind of cloud. So we're not talking about we have to run something on premises, which is different than running something in the cloud. We are talking about we're transforming the business to a cloud operations model, and you manage the hardware workloads in the data center the same way as you would do it in the cloud, with the same software version, slightly delayed by a couple of weeks for testing. But if you have, for example, containers on Microsoft Azure with AKS, the Azure Container Service, you can use the same AKS in the same version on Azure Local, and it should run. If it runs online, it runs on premises. If it runs on premises, it should run online. So it's just a one-time work for you guys that you use the platform. You develop the software once, you set up the host, you set up the containers, whatever it is. If the service is there on premises, enabled by Arc, as well as in the Azure cloud, they should be, and normally they are, consistent. For example, when we talk about virtual desktop infrastructure, the same VDI image like Windows 11 multi-session, which is a big benefit of Microsoft in that case here, that you can have a desktop operating system with a, let's call it terminal server functionality. This is something that is only there on premises with Azure Local, and you can even add GPUs. So GPUs for AI especially, but also GPUs for VDI, like NVIDIA GPUs that you can install in the system. And then you can have 3D acceleration, like for CAD software, for healthcare, for whatever your software does with GPUs. We can give you a slice of a GPU, or we even can give you a full GPU inside the nodes in the virtual workloads, so that you guys can run it in high performance there where the data needs to stay. I'm pointing this out because I'm not thinking about I have my platform on premises or I have my platform in the cloud, it's always a use case. It may be, for example, that one of the use cases is we run our website and the website has just static content or has a content management system, but it's just public information, which is uncritical. So the website could stay and live in Microsoft Azure, maybe even if in a web app service, like a platform service here in this case. And on the other hand, you have a customer portal on this website. Like, for example, you are regulated industry, like government, like banks, like insurances, financial, healthcare, whatever you are. And this data needs to stay on premises and you don't want to hand this data out of your data center. Then we use the same technology used by public Azure, but on the hardware on premises. So one use case may be good to go to public Azure to save money and just pay as you go. The other use case could run on premises, and we can mix, of course. When I say mix, what do I mean? It's pretty simple to explain it by VDI again. So imagine you have a company where you have healthcare data, or you're a car manufacturer, car parts manufacturer, and you have your 3D drawings where your engineers are engineering something which is your intellectual property. Then it may be that the guys in the office, in the back office, wherever, they use the public cloud service of Microsoft, which is awesome. AVD runs perfectly and is well competitive priced here, or even Windows 365, if this is an option as well. Then you can run for the main amount of people the flexible cloud pools, which you can, of course, automate and just pay what you need. So, for example, if you just have 2 servers virtually running in Azure, you can have rule sets saying, shut servers down which are not needed, scale out over the day, scale out when like 50 employees have been logged in, whatever. So you just pay the amount of compute resources you have in that as a demand right now, and scale it flexibly, like to unlimited scale and flexibly back, and you just pay what you need. But for your engineers, where the data needs to stay on site, we have an Azure Local cluster connected with GPUs to public Azure. So they can use, if they want, for example, a cloud app, a cloud terminal server where there's an office package with emails and stuff, but they also have a dedicated host with their 3D software running on premises, and the data never leaves the data center. So the data stays in your own boundaries. But the cool stuff here is when they dial in, it looks into Azure. So the account that is there for your Microsoft 365 emails, for example, your regular email and Teams account is the same account we use for Azure Virtual Desktop. So this means if you have a multi-factor authentication with a PIN number, with a security code, or if you have push notifications, if you have, for example, some boundaries with internal governance that says you are only allowed to connect when you're inside a company building and have a VPN. This is called conditional access. We can all make this work. So the same security stuff you have already in place for Microsoft 365, for your emails, for Teams, for all that, is the same user and the same rules applied to the Azure user that is using this, with all the possibilities and even more to control and regulate this. So what I'm saying is we have basically our Azure on top here. This is our any app, we call it, and you decide if this needs to be run in a use case on premises, if it needs to be run in the cloud, or if it can run on both sides for different kind of users or departments, or even on different kind of locations from your company perspective if you have multiple subsidiaries. So our data stays in Romania. This is our part to the sovereign cloud, but of course we have some state-of-the-art data centers. We'll talk more later. But when I talk about sovereignty, I'm always talking about the European Union. So we have partners everywhere all over the place, and we can also address other country wishes. So just to mention this, our data centers are locally, but we have a big partnership network where we can also distribute data in local data centers of other countries, which may be necessary from a regulation standpoint. But what I just want to point out is we are the one person to speak to, your single point of contact, and we orchestrate then everything behind this. Even if you have an ask of a full project which covers other countries, come to us. We can offer this as well, to have a central point you can go to, and then we manage everything and bring it together, orchestrated so that everyone is in the same project with the same data and the same project informations. So having seen this, we have the Azure services, which are in Azure. We have Arc as the control plane, which is the piece of software that brings our infrastructure to the Microsoft Azure world. And as you can see here, it's called Azure Local. Imagine it as a cloud operating system, something like a Windows server, but connected deeply into Microsoft Azure. So it's a cloud OS, something that people like to call it. And the cloud OS can run today completely managed Kubernetes and AKS, like the container service of Microsoft. Of course, it can also run VMs with Docker, with Linux and Windows. It can run every kind of VM which is compatible to the system. So if you guys have Windows 2000, I have a bad message, this won't work. But the supported operating system for Microsoft, they not only work, we have possibilities to use Azure Migrate and do assessments and stuff, and even check the readiness of your applications for this. But this is regular VMs, like you had it in Hyper-V, for example, or you run it in VMware today, or KVM, Nutanix, whatever you call it. They can also run on Azure Local. It's a regular hypervisor. And then we can have still software-defined networking, IP. We have security. We have SDN and network policies, or network security groups, which is basically like network access rules, who can talk to which network if you have different ones, things like this. And of course, this is Azure connected. So it does not send any data from your data out, but it sends telemetry of the host operating system out, because we have services running from Microsoft and they work like Microsoft Azure does. So the control counter runs online. It's like the electronic counter you have in your home, where your electronic company sees how many kilowatt of energy you consume and get an invoice. It's the same point here. So Microsoft just sends, I'm an Azure host OS here. I'm Azure Local. I have X amount of cores. I have Y amount of memory and a set amount of hard drive space, whatever. And they use it just for the billing data and for the metadata that you see in the Azure portal, which we call projection. So if you have a virtual machine running in your hypervisor and you see it in public Azure, the meta information is exchanged. I talk about something for the meta information also from News at Ignite later. But for customers where this is not possible, I just want to point out and mention that there's also a way to have Azure Local now disconnected, which means there's a subset again of the subset of services, like, for example, AKS or running VMs. This can be complete, what we call air-gapped, which means you run it on an Azure Local, which is in a very controlled infrastructure, for example, an energy plant or oil company or a gas company, whatever is critical infrastructure in your country. So we can provide Azure Local there, which is locally connected and does not send any data out at all to Microsoft servers. It's completely cut off from the host operating system, which does not mean that your VMs can't have internet. Of course they can, but the host operating system does not even send metadata or any telemetry to Microsoft. It's a complete local control panel then to control this infrastructure. And this is something we have in the news from Ignite that I talk with Kenny in the next couple of minutes then, and we bring the news to you guys. But I just wanted to point out what's Azure Local in a quick overview. And I know it's overwhelming and a lot of stuff I talk about. So I just recommend coming to us and get a one-to-one session and get a high detailed overview of services running there. Once we understand your business, we can even have a subset that we talk about. So just come to us. We're the experts in this case. And also to mention, Binbox is not new on this business. Binbox was the second customer in Europe 7 years ago when Azure Stack was introduced as a first product for on-premises clouds connected to Azure. So we talk about a lot of experience on this hybrid cloud approach. These data centers are purpose-built. The latest data center is completely built on this hybrid cloud approach with a lot of peerings, a lot of bandwidth, and everything super fast from a latency and bandwidth perspective in your countries, as well as the Microsoft Azure regions. So this is a complete cool services where you can keep the current controls inside the European Union boundaries, or even if a even in a local country like Romania, where I can say that the data is not allowed to go out of Romania. We can make this happen. The Binbox team is happy to guide you also here in this process, which data can go where and which data regulations and stuff is applied to your data from a use case perspective. So once we have this connected, we have the full stuff in Azure, like patching, updating that stuff, like VM images. So you don't need to take care about ISO files. You just take a Microsoft window out of Microsoft's marketplace in the cloud. We pre-fill for you guys, and then you can just run these VMs in a self-service portal in Azure. This means granular role-based access so that you can give to your customers or your employees, better said, more control. So for example, if a developer says, I need rights to create Linux and Windows VMs, you can grant him control in a separated network, in a resource group, whatever. So the developers only have their let's call it sandbox zone that they can work in, and you can give them also granular rights to do something in the cloud, so that you can give the control out or the keys to the kingdom to the developers, but you can make sure that they can't damage something in the production environment by not having rights to these kind of VMs. We don't have this granularity right now these days with Windows Server, for example. So this is one of the core benefits, to give more control over the infrastructure to the people they need it, to have offloaded work to them so they can achieve more. They get their wishes done faster. So from a perspective of a developer, for example, he needs a VM. He goes into a ticket system today, types in what he needs. The guys who are in the IT department decide if they can do it themselves or if they need someone from a third party to provision this VM. So it can take days or sometimes even in enterprises weeks until this developer will see his VM. If you unblock him by a self-service portal, which is completely granular from a rights perspective, he's happy because he can do it himself. He can do it in a safe way that he can't damage something. He does not bring your company into a critical cyber issue by exposing hosts to the internet and things like this. So this is a win-win from both perspectives. The IT department saves work, and the devs or whatever employees you have in the in your production environment who needs access to any kind of system, you can granular give the controls out so they can help themselves. You save work from the IT perspective, and they have more access and faster access, but in a safe and secure way that the IT department defines, as well as governance and security, of course. So having that said, Azure works like this that I just said. It's the hardware, which we take care also about sizing. Then we have Azure Local, which is compute, it's Kubernetes, it's containers, it's networking, it's storage, basically all the infrastructure in the operating system that is provided from Microsoft. Then we have the platform services, which can be Azure Virtual Desktop as well. We have stuff like the Microsoft SQL Server Managed Service and all that. And the beauty is, again, here, I'm talking about a cloud operational model. So I'm saying that if something breaks here, I just go into the ticket system in Microsoft Azure and open the same support ticket that I would open if I would use a managed SQL instance in Microsoft Azure. If I would have an issue in Microsoft Azure from a contract perspective as well. So if you have a special SLA with Microsoft, a service level agreement, that you have a contract board in your Azure tenant, this will apply to the same amount of tickets and same tickets as well that we open. So no matter where it's broken, if it's on premises in the service or in the cloud in the service, it's the same ticket system, and most of the time even the same people who will debug it with you guys and who will then take care that it comes up with green lights and everything back to production and working. So this is why I said the beauty here is you run your local cloud with the same rules and principles you run your public cloud. And that's the big difference here, which makes a difference between using a VMware, between using a Nutanix or open source tools, that this is fully integrated, just extended from a public cloud into a data center of your choice. Once we have the data then enabled by Arc, which I said the data is then synchronized from a resource perspective, projected into Azure, and this is where you have your management and security. So you guys only in a connected scenario connect to the Azure portal that you use for the cloud management of your VMs today and your services. And the same portal shows you then the stuff running on premises in a, imagine it as your private Azure region. It's a private Azure region running on servers, for example, in this case here from Dell, inside the Binbox data center, but the people using it will just see, for example, sorry, data center 1 is a zone or data center 2 or whatever. So they don't need to think about, is my hard drive big enough? Is the processor fast enough? Is there enough resources free on a hardware node? These are the things that we see already as a Binbox if you have the managed service from us, and we do the governance around it. So we keep the lights green and your people just use it. And if something goes wrong, we inform you and take care about the troubleshooting, as well as we come to you from a capacity sizing stuff and say, look, if your data grows as fast as it did the last 6 or 12 months, we probably hit a limit in 6 to 12 months in the future. We have to extend the hardware so that we ping you and say, we have a tailor-made solution for you. We also have some resources added on top to cover the next 3 years from a perspective of transformation, that we say we modernize. Normally we should free up space, but it may be that you acquire another company or that you have a new product or you buy a new ERP system and your data grows faster than expected. Then we are able to inform you in time and say we need to extend more nodes, and then we take care about this project and do the hand holding here to make sure that your company has no interruptions from not having enough resources and things like this. And of course, you can even mix hardware, right? So you could have, for example, one region which doesn't have GPUs for regular servers, which run in production, and you have a second region which then has, for example, the hardware GPUs with Azure Virtual Desktop, things like this. So we just can mix clusters, and you can even mix other hypervisors. So if you just own already something like Nutanix, VMware, whatever, we can just put an Azure Local left or right of it and mix it up for the users. It's really not a big deal to have it standing there side by side. For us, it's super important if you have great hardware still there and running to save your investment and make sure you can still use it for the rest of the lifetime of the hardware. And we integrate in the overall concept. So we have basically like the lift and shift now. We have maybe like 1, 2, or 3 years left from a hardware perspective where leasing is running or where the hardware is still good enough. And then basically from there, we have a plan to be Microsoft only. And this is the place then where we have only Microsoft's cloud operational model. But in the meantime, in the middle, we are also there to work with you on the best way to go to have basically a mixed environment here. So that said, well, who is basically regulated and who needs it? For who are these use cases here especially interesting? For everyone who has real-time defect detection, like for example, your car manufacturer, and you have a camera system installed to do quality control. You have machinery installed locally where latency is an issue. Like for example, you have a high-speed production and you need to take pictures, and you need to have a machine learning stuff around this to see if the part is, or if the part quality is what it should be. You have predictive maintenance, things like this, where, for example, say we have a production network in our factories, which is not exposed to the internet. So we want to have a local 2-node cluster for a high available Kubernetes to run our production software from Siemens or whoever. This is one of the main benefits here. We can have this or make this happen. As I said, we can mix up a lot of clusters next to each other. And normally if you have local factories and we talk about IoT, it's always one factory, one IoT system, which makes a lot of sense to keep the data in the factory itself, to not give data out, especially no intellectual property to public clouds. That's the demand here. Beside having the high speed for the data processing, because latency from your data center to the Microsoft data center, then having the AI involved and data coming back for some machines is not fast enough, and this will slow down the production. And so this is here really a big win to have the workload out of the Microsoft Azure world with the Microsoft Azure software and the capabilities running in your low latency and high bandwidth production network in your production site. The same thing is here for retail. Think about you're a retailer like a grocery store and you use camera surveillance to see how many people queue up in the cashier systems to then automatically trigger any announcements, for example, that they need to open a new cashier because one is not enough for the amount of people there. Or if you have some high some stuff with high value in your shop floor, in your shop basically on site, and you want to detect if someone is stolen, like a detection if something is left. Something is lost on the picture, for example, there's a handbag, and next moment the handbag isn't there. You want an alarm for this because it's an expensive handbag. So things like this can be done, as well as you count how many people walk in and out. You want to do some investigations here, if this is a child or not, if how many people at which time of the day are coming in, out, or even if you have a electronic cashier system run by AI. So for example, I was in the USA in Chicago last year, and we watched the basketball game of the Chicago Bulls, and they have these retail stores. You just walk in, you take whatever out of the freezer, and you just walk out, and it automatically builds your Apple Pay on your iPhone by entering the grocery store in the Bulls Stadium. It was awesome because everything worked by hand. There was just one cashier standing there, babysitting the technology because it's in a proof of concept up there and running. But you walk in, hold your Apple Pay, it just bings, you got your phone, you take whatever you want, and you walk out, and you get billed what you had in your hands. And it worked awesome. We tried to trick it, but it did not work. So this is something that needs high processing time. This is something that's enabled as well on site with that stuff that you can develop and test in Azure. So your developers can develop it without any initial big investment, and then bring it to the retail stores on site where you don't have a higher bandwidth or whatever, or you want to keep data on site, stuff like this. And yes, healthcare is also a big topic here, like X-ray pictures, like CT scans and all this blood stuff, patient folders, and all that stuff around the patient, medication, the patient details needs to stay on-prem. Same for banks, insurances, financial. These are data that needs to be under local control, and this is what we make happen here with the hardware as well. So that said, just a quick word again about the Azure Local Center of Excellence. What I just said, you guys can always go to Azure, create a subscription, like the first $150 for free for a new person registering to Azure, and can try test stuff. But you can't go somewhere right now and say, we want to make sure that our software, if you're a software developer, or if you are, for example, a user and you want to switch over to the Microsoft solution, we want to test it on-prem as well. So normally, if you then buy the hardware, it's a big investment. Some people have to write it out publicly because they're on the stocks market. And this is the pain we want to solve here. So basically, we just solve the issue that you have a big investment. You can just come to us and say, Dino, we want to have a proof of concept up and running in a data center with the real hardware and see if this works. And that's the thing we solve. That's our latest data center here, super CO2 efficient, super energy efficient as well. We are not bringing out, we're not saying where it's located. It's inside Romania. If we have NDAs and stuff, we are also saying where it is, but not right now for the demo. You need just to know that we have state-of-the-art Dell systems up and running, like the enterprise-grade hardware for 6 figures of investments is running here. And if you want to test something, come to us. We make it happen, and we can help you also transfer applications and VMs and stuff over here. So that said, I would jump to back to Kenny and the highlights from Ignite. Kenny, can you hear me? Could you just say a couple of words about yourself, because I'm already over time. Sorry for that.
I can hear you. And I'll give you a second to take a sip of your juice and recover your voice as well. So there you go.
Thank you.
No worries. My name is Kenny Lowe. I work at Dell Technologies. I am, like Dino, a Microsoft MVP, also a Microsoft Regional Director and an NVIDIA Enterprise Advisor. I spend all my time talking about Azure Local and how Dell is helping customers adopt and take the best out of it, I guess.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kenny. So I want to talk with you about a couple of announcements. They are sorted in a way I was exciting about it, and what makes more sense for the customers. As we know, we as MVPs love new stuff, but it's not always the best idea to bring to the customer directly. So these are the stuff that we talk about now. Is the stuff that works. And we heard that AI Foundry is now Windows Server and especially Azure Local much deeper integrated in the OS. And this was something that I found super cool. Maybe you can say something about you talk to Dell customers all day, and you're more in a engineering role, right? I can say, what is AI Foundry these days? What are the most amount of use cases that customers want to solve on-prem with AI Foundry?
Sure. That's a good first question. What is AI Foundry? AI Foundry in Azure is a platform for building, deploying, and lifecycling generative AI apps and agents. That's what it was built for. So if you want to build and then lifecycle all those generative AI applications, agentic-based AI, AI Foundry is there to do that. So what is AI Foundry Local? It's the same, but for the edge, for on-premises, and to bring that capability where you need it. And actually, when we look at AI use cases, the biggest place we see that growing is at the edge, where data is being generated. You don't want to generate your data in one location, ship it all the way back to the cloud over expensive internet connections, using all your bandwidth to process it and then send an action back to take that action on premises. You want to do that where the data is being generated. So AI Foundry Local allows you to do that on-device inference, to do that where that data is being generated there. You can do that using existing AI-generated models, so the same models you would use in public Azure you can do, or you can bring your own models, which are to meet your own needs. That could be models you've created yourself, or it could be existing Azure models with some retrieval augmented generation built in to bring your own data into those as well. Then the last benefit, I guess, is that you can use your own hardware. So you get rid of a lot of the existing transactional costs, we'll say, in the cloud. There are lots of recurring cloud costs that happen, especially with high performance storage per IO costs, or on high performance GPUs as well. If you have those things on premises, you can get the full power of those without those transactional things happening. So loads of benefits there, I think.
Yeah, so thank you for this. So, I'm playing around with this all the time, and I love figuring stuff. So many people may think, what does it help me on-prem? But I brought from Ignite a couple of questions in my brain. I had enough time in my hotel room for the 3 days I had COVID to think about it. Really, it makes a lot of sense. For example, if you imagine we have an AI voice assistant on a phone system, the latency is very critical over there. So if you say something, it takes like 5 seconds to come back and reply to you on a phone, it makes no sense to use it, right? So this is a cool use case, or I saw a use case on Ignite as well, where someone came and said, we want to interview a patient locally, and just from talking, it should record what we talked, and the model should then make an overview and enter in the patient file automatically what we talked about. So the doctor has more time face-to-face with the patient, and the documentation is done without any cost of a nurse sitting there typing, which is also awesome. So lots of stuff on-prem and stuff it enables now, basically, without extra amount of work to make your application running with version A in the cloud and version B locally in a different setup. It's the same model that you can run. And I heard it saves a lot of money from training. And that said, it's the second announcement. It also now supports the NVIDIA RTX Pro 6000 Blackwell GPUs, which is already a really big boost, let's say it like this, from a performance perspective, that is also integrated, if I understand it correctly, in AKS. So it's really like the whole GPU power running through the OS and then inside AKS. So it's like bare metal power, right? The same GPU benchmarks almost that you had when you would run it bare metal with Kubernetes should get out of this as well, right? Or did I understand it wrong here?
Yeah, actually, let's tie these two things together, because the RTX Pro 6000 Blackwell, the first Blackwell GPU available in Azure Local here, is for high performance, really data processing intensive workloads running at the edge. And I really like that use case you gave a moment ago about doctors talking to their patients and transcribing the use case there. But actually, there's another very similar example that Dell implemented for a company. It's a public reference, so I can talk about it, in the US, close to the southern border, which was for real-time translation, where you might have someone coming into the doctor's surgery who has a problem, but they don't speak the same language, and you want to do real-time translation of that in the same building. It's very confidential data. It's got HIPAA requirements in the US. We have similar confidentiality requirements in the EU, and you cannot send that data to the cloud to be processed. So it needs to be done as fast as possible in the same site to deliver that real-time translation as fast as possible. And actually, the RTX Pro 6000 in Azure Local with AKS with AI Foundry actually is a great enabler for all of that functionality there.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. And you said a lot of data, so we just need to rush a little bit because I want you to have a couple of minutes also. And yeah, sorry, it's always exciting to talk with you. I guess our chat is the problem here. So
well, it's really easy actually, Dino, because on the SAN system here, I can roll in my later section into this one line here around the SANs here, so I don't need to talk anymore other than this section here.
Because just talk quickly, if you could just quickly then say something as well to the regular clustering, because this is something cool. If you have mostly if you have SAN system and you have data on-prem and you can't get it out, you have two versions of it, and this is also something cool that you have now the possibility to have a DR side on-prem as well with the regular clustering.
Rack-aware clustering is super useful to be able to have resiliency across rooms or across buildings, as long as you have the right latency there. So to be able to have workloads running in one building and fail over automatically to another in the event of a disaster or the event of something going wrong in that site. Of course, you'd never have water coming in from the ceiling and destroying your data center there. That would never happen. But being able to have a second site that can recover using that almost instantaneous rack-aware clustering, I think is super valuable there. For me, one of the most interesting announcements at Ignite was this Azure Local now supports SAN systems, because Azure Local was created as a hyperconverged infrastructure. And for the last almost 10 years, we've been telling everyone why hyperconverged is so awesome and why it's so great. And hyperconverged is great. So I don't want to get away from that. Hyperconverged is a great way to run and store your data. But there have always been boundaries with hyperconverged, things that we couldn't do with hyperconverged. So the ability to scale storage and compute independently. If you want to scale hyperconverged, you have to add on compute as well as storage at the same time. The ability to share one common storage pool across multiple different types of ecosystem. Maybe you're not only running Azure Local, maybe you're running other things as well, and you want to share that across other infrastructures as well. Or maybe you've already invested into a SAN and you don't want to buy another bunch of storage to implement Azure Local here. So for all these reasons and more, we now have the ability to use external storage with Azure Local. And I wonder if I could just steal the screen share for a second, because I think it's important. And, I'm asking, but I'm just going to do it.
Yeah. Let me just add one thing, and you can sure. Just take over to your session. So I just already said it a couple of times what we offer. So basically the message is all the time, please come to us. We check your current hardware. We can do an assessment and stuff like this. There are two small cool features or stuff that came out. One is like if you migrate away from VMware, the VMware migration with Azure Migrate, which is super easy, is GA. What means GA was there all the time right now already, but now if something breaks, Microsoft supports it. We can open tickets for this and get help on the migrations. And the last thing I want to say is like, it's related to metadata as well as Microsoft 365 Local. Because of this whole discussion of data sovereignty in European Union, we also support more and more regions to store your metadata at. So we make sure that the metadata that you see in the Azure portal is also stored under the compliance of the European Union. As well as M365, we can provide Exchange, SharePoint, and Skype for Business Premium on the hardware itself. So you have a Exchange server, mailboxes and everything in your data center, third party, or in best case with Binbox. So this is something come to us and ask, and then I'm done basically with all I wanted to say, and the stage is yours for the SAN support and the Dell platform.
I will only take 5 minutes for this year, and then we can go back to the rest of the Ignite announcements there, so we'll still have plenty of time to go through those as well. But just while we were on that line about SAN support here, I thought it's worth having a look at the announcements here, because this is in the Microsoft documentation here. So in Azure Docs here, if you go to Azure Local, actually there's a huge amount of documentation within here. So one of the great benefits of working with a partner is they're the one that has to read and understand all of this, and you don't have to. So one of the great benefits of working with a partner there. If we scroll down to this external storage support, this is something Microsoft announced last week at Microsoft Ignite, and it's really around those benefits that I mentioned there. investment protection, being able to reuse your existing investments there, being able to have operational consistency, one way to manage storage across everything that you do in your data center, the ability to have multipath and dual fabrics, lots of redundancy features there. You can have inline high performance deduplication, really reduce the cost down there as well. And then that enterprise performance there as well. You can drive some extreme performance over some of the more modern SANs here as well. The interesting thing is, while that was announced last week, if we scroll down to the supported configurations, you'll see that actually, while the fiber channel-based SAN connectivity announced last week is in preview, Dell PowerFlex is generally available. And actually, we launched external storage support for Azure Local in 2024. So we've been doing this for 1.5, almost 2 years now at this point. The ability to do all those things I just said with Dell PowerFlex has been in market for a long time now. And we've proven out that market, and now it's expanding further, which I'm very happy to see, because that drives innovation for everyone there. Now, what we have seen over the last 1.5 years of running this is there are some new things that we need to do to make the experience better. If I look at how we've done hyperconverged infrastructure up to this point, the benefit of hyperconverged is that it's simple to order, simple to onboard, simple to deploy. You have automated lifecycle management and single stack support there. All of these things have been key to the growth of hyperconverged in the last 10 years here or so. While if we look back at 3-tier architecture, disaggregated architecture, you get benefits there around independent scaling, efficient use of resources, that high performance dedupe there, and flexibility to avoid lock-in, but you miss out on things like the simplicity and the automated lifecycle management and the single stack support. So because we've been working on this for over 1.5 years at this point, and we've seen the need to, let's say, converge these capabilities, provide the benefits of 3-tier, but also provide the benefits of hyperconverged, that's what we've been spending our time on, so that as others are new into this market, we're expanding and enhancing this market. And we're using a tool that we call the Dell Automation Platform to provide those HCI benefits with the flexibility of 3-tier. So the ability to do full stack deployment of the storage as well as the Azure Local all together in one motion there. The ability to lifecycle everything together and not treat it as another SAN sitting off to the side as its own independent thing. The ability to test updates across all these things and say, when you apply this update, it's not going to break anything. And the ability to have single vendor support there is super critical to us here. And all of that functionality, actually, we provide across a broad range of different infrastructure there. So consistency in how you deploy, lifecycle, manage, and most importantly, the assurance that we can bring that these things will just work. This picture, by the way, is just an example of what this could look like. It's not, this is what it must look like. You could have just Azure Local using external storage if you want. You could have just Azure Local using hyperconverged if you want. You could have VMware vSphere and Azure Local using the same SAN, making it very easy to move workloads between those as maybe you migrate off VMware. A huge amount of flexibility here. But that's really the key I wanted to share around the SAN integration, is that while this is new to some, it is not new to Dell, and we are really enhancing our existing investments to make the best possible experience for our joint customers there. So that's the external SAN storage there, and you can go back to the Ignite announcements there now, if you'd like,
So Dino and Kenny, while you're doing that, I got some questions on the back channel on the Ignite announcements. Maybe you can stress out a bit the expansion in management capability beyond 16 nodes to the fact that we are able to manage more than 16 nodes. It's in the list, the announcement.
Yes, it's here in our list. We are able to manage more than 16 nodes. So if you have a demand on more than 60 nodes, I would like to talk to you, because if I think about the hardware portfolio that I've seen shipping the last couple of months out with AMD CPUs, memory, as well as disks, 60 nodes with these badass systems, that fits so much in. Please talk to us, because we can scale over 100 and more nodes that's the announcement here, but it does not make sense always to do it. So this is why I said, let us talk by use case. For example, if you have this demand, a PowerFlex storage combined with another all-flash HCI system makes more sense. So we would love to look at this demand and then untangle it, because I'm always against having this big cluster that is the same, and when it crashed, the whole company is offline.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you see it, Kenny, but all eggs in one basket is something that I learned makes no sense.
For sure. And by the way, just on the PowerFlex side there, we can do up to 512 nodes of PowerFlex storage. So even if you had a small compute requirement and large storage, you could use that existing, you know, and you could do a one node Azure Local with 512 nodes of PowerFlex. You wouldn't, but it's technically possible to achieve these things. So from a compute perspective, that's the Microsoft announcement. From a storage perspective, we were already there. It's just exciting to have more choice.
Yes, and it's especially why I'm mentioning this. If you guys saw the hardware cost for memory and disk, like all flash disks, we had some higher amount of percentage which was raised the last 3 months. We don't know where this goes, but I wouldn't feel comfortable now bringing spinning disks back in the HCI system, but in a PowerFlex, it's more than okay to have the spinning disk for cold data, which just stays there for archiving. It's still there, right, Kenny? Or
I have personal preferences not to use spinning disks ever, but it's technically possible.
They're still produced, so at some point I get it. Yeah, cool. But yeah.
So just Matthias, because you asked the question, would you like to develop on your use case, or you want to take it offline and discuss your scenario offline? Feel free, I don't know, write in the text, or if you want, we can give you the mic to go more into detail, as you like.
I would like to discuss it in offline from a time perspective.
Okay, yeah,
so
that's true. No, fair enough, absolutely, yeah.
So also to make sure we take the time to explain it and not rush through it. So everyone is welcome to ask questions, also to the deploy@binbox.com address. And this is also the address to have wishes. So if you guys say, we want to see how Azure migration could look like, Azure Local migration with Azure Migrate, then just send your wishes. But I think Jelu, who is responsible for our survey form, also included in the survey form a field where you can add wishes. I'm sure we will dig much deeper into the Dell automation platform with Kenny again, probably next year, which is already in a couple of weeks, surprisingly. And the next series that comes is already planned. So the next thing we talk about, because it's also a massive thing from a licensing cost for many customers, is Azure Virtual Desktop. So I'm doing a session with Thomas Maurer, who is also was also a very famous MVP out of Switzerland and is now a Microsoft employee, and as well since a couple of weeks the global black belt for sovereign cloud customers in Europe, like the guy from the Microsoft side with technical knowledge who helps us to stay inside the European boundaries with Microsoft technology. So probably many of you guys have seen what's ongoing with LinkedIn, which is, it's not funny anymore because everyone is spreading the word of we can't make it run securely. The answer is American hyperscaler and with OSs and everything is fine. And we are the guys, Kenny, I, myself, Binbox. We can make this happen with Microsoft, also documented and audited and with the certificates and everything you need, and even more control than running open source on-prem and without any excuses and whatever. So just come to us if you feel you're blocked and you have a special use case and you can't use a hyperscaler and it need to migrate everything off on-prem. Please talk to us first. Maybe we can help you, and we have the network to talk to everyone needed for this, including the Microsoft product groups as well as the Dell team, where Kenny's in the engineering connected as well. So having that said, next one is AVD. Next one after AVD, please send your wishes, Arc management, AKS stuff, whatever. And just to mention, because Kenny said so many times the benefits, if you migrate off whatever, we have seen Nutanix on Kenny's slide, we have seen VMware on Kenny's slide, we have seen OpenShift, and you guys ran already Microsoft Windows data center licensing with software assurance. And you think what Kenny and Dino told us it sounds too good to be true. It must be super expensive. No, it isn't. If you already have the data center cores and you already have the software assurance, which gives you the hybrid benefit, you are able to migrate the cores off of your current system and can then use them on the new Azure Local system. So the host operating system, the cloud OS, how we called it, with the core features, including like VM hosting. And AKS, the container service, is included in your software assurance with the Windows license. And you run it basically from the perspective of the operating system for free. So we have a lot of customers coming from VMware. They bring their Windows licenses with software assurance with them, with the hybrid benefit, and they have not 1 cent more. They really save a lot of money by doing this. And this is super, super cool, because if you do it, your Windows VMs are licensed like on any other hypervisor for free as well. So also talk to us if this is an issue for you. And having that said, are there any more questions that we can directly take to me or Kenny, which are easy to answer? If not, you're always welcome to send them in, and I take care that we answer them after the session. Kenny, did I forget something?
Did we touch on disconnected operations?
No. Yeah, I talked about it earlier on, but you can maybe add some words to this as well.
No, I just, in case we hadn't mentioned it, I must have missed that. But yeah, Azure Local disconnected operations into public preview now, which is the ability to not just run just enough Azure in your data center connected to Azure and using Azure as the management plane, but bring just enough of the management plane on premises as well, and run in a fully air-gapped, disconnected dark site as well, which I think is very interesting to a lot of customers just now.
Do you have? I mentioned healthcare, car manufacturing, but I guess what I always don't mention, but I love it the most, is aerospace and military, right?
Military for sure, yeah. The defense space is big on disconnected for some reason.
Especially for us now in Europe. So this is also a cool scenario to touch. And also, if you have customers in that space, ping us. I can't promise that I can stay in, because as a German, I can't do all the projects of other people's military from other nations. But we have the right people to ping at Binbox, and then we ping Microsoft and bring the right people together. Having that said, Adi, do you want to add something? And Adi is already gone. Then I would say we are in time. Sorry for rushing. We need to get more routine with the new features. So it's the first time we had the Ignite announcements here, and the first time for the COE. So the message is super simple. If you want to get off VMware, if you want to get to another hypervisor, if you have no idea what you could take, and just tell us what you have. If you're still on bare metal, if you're just on plain vanilla Kubernetes or Docker, if you just run VMs on, I don't know, Proxmox, KVM, just ping us. We're there for this. We take it from the first request until day 2 operations out of a service. We can tailor make it for you. We have the right partners left and right, also in other countries, the data center locations and everything. So you have one partner, we put it all together. You had everything in one place. It's much easier for you to have the compliance also documented and get certification in the background, like the ISO 27001, 9001, and all that stuff needed in the regulated manufacturing sites and industries. So just use us. It's our job to make this work. The pre-sales role is there. On Microsoft side, we have Thomas Maurer as well, who can assist there. We have the right people in sales, very well trained on Microsoft, that I said, with like more than 7 years of experience. And of course, Binbox runs a massive amount of Azure Stack system in the data center. So they are well known at Microsoft side as well. And ping, just come to us. I can't say it often enough. And also, if there are any questions, there are no stupid questions, throw them in. We make sure that we get answered, because we are always happy to answer these instead of having some fairy tales around that nobody knows if they're right or wrong, like the sovereign discussion on LinkedIn. Sorry for that. It's right to have the discussion, by the way, but we should look at the workload and use cases as well. This is what I want to say. We should always think about open source, great stuff, and I'm just missing the part of the customer infrastructure. Just from bringing a VM which has 500 critical security bugs from the US to Germany doesn't make it more secure. It still gets hacked. So you should see it as a full project with governance, security, everything around it, and not just into virtual machines and containers. And this is also something we do. Transformation, lift and shift first, but then transform it and have the benefit of having less administration and cheaper resource cost is also one of the big benefits of having a cloud system running. And it removes complexity, right? Using a SQL server and paying a SQL server without a host OS is much easier than having the Windows to patch underneath as well and license. Having that said, I could talk the next 5 hours, but it's already 2 minutes over. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kenny. I hope we can hear more about the automation platform soon. And maybe we can also make some cool demos together where you already have a VMware or a Nutanix system or a KVM system and see how you have multi-cloud orchestration out of the Dell platform without having to learn the technology every time from new.
Absolutely.
Make sense?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Then I wish a good day to everyone. It's already Friday, I think. So I wish everyone a good weekend and talk to you guys soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.